coming back to Pakistan, what's going on now is no less grave. On an almost daily basis, there are bombs falling on villages in Pakistan. It's a secret war. No, every Pakistani, it's not a secret for them, but on a general level in our society, if you were a regular watcher of the media, you would never know that there was a war going on there. It's very similar to the Americans' previous, what was going on during the last huge defeat for their empire, which was the Vietnam conflict, where they also secretly dropped thousands of tons of bombs on Cambodia and on Laos. Laos became the most bombed country in history. More bombs dropped in Laos during that conflict than there was in the entire world in World War II. And they still find, there's still casualties every week, even now, because of people finding unexploded devices from cluster bombs and so on. And that's what's being created now in Pakistan, in the northwest of Pakistan, where the logic of the war on terror and apparently going after the Taliban means that now we have to apparently terrorise another set of people, drop bombs on their heads for the crime of having been born into a place where our government doesn't like some of the people operating there. And it's time that was challenged, because as far as I know, it hasn't been on an international level. We need a coordinated international response to this. Our governments are coordinated on an international level. The British, the Americans, the Israelis and the Musharraf dictatorship, when it existed, they were coordinated. They made sure that we supported each other. And our response has to be coordinated at an international level. We need to start a campaign to make sure that this secret war, this illegal war that's happening in Pakistan is ended, because Farooq and his party, their struggle for freedom, for democracy, for socialism, you can't establish a socialist republic in a place that's been destroyed by bombs dropping on it. The bombings have to be stopped. And even from a point of view of, if you're somebody who was saying, well, what about the war against the Taliban has to be won in Afghanistan and even in Pakistan, what will happen if they take over? What will happen to women's rights? Of course there are legitimate concerns about what they might do if they were in power. But the idea that you can destroy these kinds of forces by bombing villages and killing innocent civilians in the process, that won't stop them. In fact, it's probably the greatest recruiting device that they could ever hope for. The Taliban now is probably in a stronger position in Afghanistan, where it's looking like it could well take power. It's probably in a stronger position than it was before the invasion happened in 2001. And look, just as our government's aggression is spilled over into Pakistan, so too is the Taliban's influence. Of course, I'm not here to try and paint a black and white picture and say, well, just because clearly we can establish it, the policy of the UK government, the US government, that makes them the bad guys. It doesn't mean that the automatic reverse is, well, then you just support the other team, which is the Taliban. Of course, there are nuances there. And this came up a few times in the election campaign. Some people, kind of liberals, put me on the spot and said, do you want the Taliban to take over? What about women's rights? What about democracy? And my response again and again was, if the concern was about democracy and human rights and so on, why the hell would you install a corrupt warlord regime thriving off the poppy trade with no regard whatsoever for human rights or women's rights, just as bad as the Taliban, except without any of the ideology behind it? Why would you install them in power? One guy actually said to me, well, you're right, there's warlords there, and that's why we have to make sure we're there. And I said, no, I don't think you understood what I was saying. The warlords are in place because we put them in place. They work for us, they're our clients. So it's a dark episode for British foreign policy. It's clearly not working. The generals over there have admitted there's no military victory in sight. And yet every week there's young working class men and women from places like Glasgow losing their lives in an unwinnable war. Let's step up, let's redouble our efforts. I think that never before has there been such a huge agreement for one of our core policies, which is to bring the troops out of Afghanistan and to end similar imperialist adventures. There's never been so much support I don't think of the general populace. And it's time to tap into that and to get results on it. Let's bring the troops home, end the aggression in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and if you want to make sure that regimes like the Taliban aren't able to take force, if that was some kind of genuine concern, you don't do it by killing people in occupying countries. You do it in countries like Afghanistan by allowing them a stable period of peaceful development where the ideas and the talents that can never be realised in these types of countries that exist, but they're latent, they can't be realised because they're turned into war zones by our governments. Let's stop them being war zones, and let's make them places of peace where development happens, and then you can really see, democracy, human rights, and hopefully with the work of parties like the LPP, socialism.